Medieval music. After the fall of the Roman Empire in the 6th century AD, a new era started, the Middle Ages. A new kind of music was shaped by this era, known as medieval music, and musicians of the 11th and 12th centuries were referred to as troubadours, trovers, and minstrels, who influenced medieval music and were considered both as sacred and secular. Medieval music is mostly in Latin and religious music.
The medieval period of centuries 590 to 164 by Daphne Makauba. Events and composers during this time. During this time, the Gregorian chant was developed, and it was developed and named by Pope Gregory I. During this time, the Gregorian chant was developed. It is also known as plain song and named after Pope Gregory I. The melodic sounds are unique and often called mysterious. The tradition of sung prayer dates back to the first millennium, with Gregorian chant becoming the proper music of the mature Roman Rite, said Timothy S. McDonnell, director of the Institute of Sacred Music at the Catholic University of America in Washington. Gregorian chant was standard in the Mass in the 1950s, but fell out of favor after the Second Vatican Council, when the traditional Latin Mass was changed to the dominant language of each country. Though it has regained popularity in the past few decades, the chant is not the principal music in most U.S. Catholic parishes, McDonnell told Catholic News Service. Pope Gregory I, or Pope Saint Gregory the Great, the Gregorian chant is named after him during whose papacy 509 to 604. It was collected and codified. This pope was credited with bringing it to the West. The first of the medieval popes and the second pope deemed great faced numerous challenges during his reign, including plague, famine, and threats from the Byzantines and the Lombards.
Medieval era. I'm going to be talking about a portion of the medieval era. This is just going to be a brief and general explanation. So, during the 1000s to the 1100s, or as others call it, the early Middle Ages, there were two major things that happened here which affected music greatly, which is the spread of liturgical music drama. This would be present in the early 1000s, and the spread of the music of the troubadours and the trovers, which was present in the middle and the end of the 1000s to 1100s. So you could observe here that these two happened in different timelines. So moving on, I'll be discussing the first major thing that happened in the 1000s to 1100s. So, what is liturgical musical drama? Reading from what's said here, it's basically a play based on the stories from the Bible and of the saints. In this play, instead of speaking with each other in monotone voices, they would sing and chant instead. The first dramatizations of this were during Easter Sunday, and the first written liturgical drama is called The Wise and Foolish Virgins. Here, I've given a list of other liturgical dramas if you would want to check it out. So examples of these would be like Sponsus or the play of Herod and many more. The next major thing that happened in the 1000s to 1100s in music was the rise of troubadour music. Obviously, these were the songs made by the troubadours and trovers. This music is a vernacular tradition of monophonic, It's a secular song, it's accompanied by instruments and singers, and it's music for entertainment outside the church. So, unlike chants, what they use in the churches before, this music was introduced to become entertainment. It's not focused on praising anyone. If you haven't known or observed that the start of music was not for entertainment, but it was for prayer and praise in the church, so they weren't allowed to use instruments. But once people finally found a way, and yes, they made music outside the church using instruments while singing together with it, but they made sure it was outside the church. So the main purpose for troubadour music was for the thrill, the excitement, and entertainment. So examples of famous troubadour and trouvers would be Guilhem de Paytus, Guillaume de Aquitaine, or other known as Duke William IX of Aquitaine, and there are many more. Examples of genres used in troubadour music would be alba, cancel, and more. So, yes, now that I have finally talked about the two major things that happened in between the timelines of thousands to 1100s, the following slides will show you what or how liturgical musical dramas were done and what troubadours and trouvers look like. So basically, these are just pictures that will give you more of an idea of what the things that happen in here look like.
The medieval period, 1030. Around this time, a new method to teach singing was invented by Benedictine monk and choir master Guido di Arezzo. He is regarded as the inventor of modern musical notation. Music notation or musical notation is any system used to visually represent orally perceived music, played with instruments or sung by the human voice through the use of written, printed, or otherwise produced symbols, including notation for durations of absence of sounds such as rests. The founder of what is now considered the standard music staff, Guido di Arezzo, taught the use of solemnization syllables based on a hymn to Saint John the Baptist. Modern music notation is used by musicians of many different genres throughout the world. The staff acts as a framework upon which pitches are indicated by placing oval note heads on the staff lines or between the lines. The pitch of the oval musical note heads can be modified by accidentals. The duration is shown with the different note values, which can be indicated by the note head being a stemless hollow oval, a hollow rectangle, or stemless hollow oval with one or two vertical lines on either side.
Utque an laxis resonare fibris mira gestorum famuli tuorum solve poluti labire atum sante
Ioane. 1098 to 1179 Medieval Period, presented by Enzo Go. I'll be talking about a period in history that has changed the course of the music world, specifically the Middle Ages, the medieval period. Saint Hildegard of Bingen. Contributions to the music world, monophony. Before we discuss further on what truly happened during this era, during this time perhaps, let us first go back to defining what is monophonic music. In music, monophony is the simplest of musical textures, consisting of a melody or tune, typically sung by a single singer or played by a single instrument player, for example, a flute player, without accompanying harmony or chords. Many folk songs and traditional songs are monophonic. A melody is also considered to be monophonic if a group of singers, for example, a choir, sings the same melody together in unison. In the early Middle Ages, the earliest Christian songs, called plain chants, a well-known example is the Gregorian chant, as we all know, were monophonic. So during this time, from what we can read, monophonic music is a rise, is an elevation during this time. So let's see on how we can truly connect this element of music to this moment of time. As we are done defining the simple terms, monophony, let us now go to who was mentioned earlier. Now, who truly is Saint Hildegard of Bingen? Saint Hildegard and the Sibyl of the Rhine was a German Benedictine abbess, writer, composer, philosopher, Christian mystic, visionary, and polymath of the High Middle Ages. A Benedictine abbess is someone superior to a group of nuns. That's what we mean by an abbey or an abbess. So, Saint Hildegard was a Benedictine abbess. She is one of the best-known composers of sacred monophony. As I said, monophony earlier as a single melody tone, or a line, a song, music, as well as the most recorded in modern history. She has been considered by many in Europe to be the founder of natural history in Germany. So, Saint Hildegard originates from Germany. She wrote theological, botanical, and medicinal texts, as well as letters, liturgical songs for women, choirs to sing. There are more surviving chants by Hildegard than by any other composer from the entire Middle Ages, and she is one of the few known composers to have written both the music and the words. She has composed 82 songs. So Saint Hildegard is an artist, someone who is passionate through music, a music enthusiast. So that's what she is. That's where she revolves in. And she mostly writes songs for women choirs to sing. And she composed over 82 songs, and that's such a large number in her time, since most songs in that time are still, as we all know, sacred, plain chant, meaning the only people who get a chance to sing, to compose their own music, are nuns, are priests perhaps rather. So she went off mainstream and wrote her own liturgical songs, meaning for the church, something female nuns can't do that only priests can. She still did it otherwise. So she truly has a strong will and passion towards arts, the art of music. The canonization of Saint Hildegard. Wait, but before that, what is canonization? In simple words, canonization is the declaration of a deceased person on becoming a saint by the Roman Catholic Church, by the High Church in Vatican. So, a good example for this will be Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Just right before she died, she was declared as a saint. Same goes for Saint Hildegard. Although the history of her formal canonization is complicated, branches of the Roman Catholic Church have recognized her as a saint for centuries. On the 10th of May 2012, Pope Benedict XVI extended the liturgical cult of Saint Hildegard to the entire Catholic Church in a process known as equivalent canonization. On the 7th of October 2012, he named her a Doctor of the Church in recognition of her holiness and of life and originality of her teaching. So, although Saint Hildegard has done her part from many centuries ago, since 1098, she was only canonized, she was only declared as a saint in the 21st century. Although it's been such quite a while, she was only perhaps named now. She was only recognized by her actions now. She was only crowned as a saint now by the people, by the Roman Catholic Church. And yeah, there are examples of songs written by Saint Hildegard. Though there are 82, of course I can't fit it all here. So here I gave 10. Thank you.
Veni Creator Spiritus, mentis tuorum visita, implesu perna gratia, qui tu creasti pictora.
The Goliath. The satirical poems directed at the church were inspired by their daily worlds, including mounting corruption in the monasteries and escalating tensions among religious leaders. As a result of their rebellious writings against the church, the Goliards were eventually denied the privileges of the clergy. Their strained relationship with the church, along with their vagabond lifestyle, also contributed to many poems describing the complaints of such a lifestyle. What were the Goliards? The Goliards were a group of clergy, generally young in Europe, who wrote satirical Latin poetry in the 12th and 13th centuries of the Middle Ages. They were chiefly clerics who served or studied at the universities of France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and England, who protested against the growing contradictions within the church through song, poetry, and performing. Disaffected and not called to the religious life, they often presented such protests within a structured setting associated with carnival, such as Feast of Fools or church liturgy.
Medieval era 1100s to 1300s by Pauline Quintin. This period was the birth of Minnesang, which were lyrics and songwriting in Germany, much like the troubadour tradition of France. Minnesingers mainly sang of courtly love, and some known Minnesingers were Henrik van Vildeke, Wolfram von Eschenbach, and Hartmann von Au. Courtly love was a medieval European literary conception of love that emphasized nobility and chivalry. Medieval literature is filled with examples of knights setting out on adventures and performing various deeds or services for ladies because of their courtly love. Henrik van Vildeke. Vildeke's most sizable work is the Aeneas Romance, which he based on the old French Roman the Aeneas that in its turn was inspired by Virgil's Aeneid. Wolfram von Eschenbach was a German knight poet and composer, regarded as one of the greatest epic poets of medieval German literature. As a Minnesinger, he also wrote lyric poetry, which was 9 surviving songs, 5 of which are dawn songs, are regarded as masterpieces of Minnesang. Dawn songs recount the story of a knight who spends the night with his beloved lady. Then Hartmann von Au was a German knight and poet, with his works including Erich, Iwin, Gregorius, and Der arme Henrik. He introduced the courtly romance into German literature, and with Wolfram von Eschenbach and Gottfried von Strasberg, was one of the three great epic poets of Middle High German literature. Period.
Son bogues, parlier son voler, de son don brisa, corvoron, canon bocciate m'enveder, rins de gran sens fora del món, car de las grans volats que hi són.
High Medieval Music in the 12,000s by E.M. The spread of Geisler-Lieder or flagellant songs. The practice of flagellation was practiced by people whipping themselves with various instruments as a way to repent to God with hopes of ending the disease and wars of the time. Geisler-Lieder music was simple and closely related to folk songs. In medieval music, the Geisler-Lieder or flagellant songs were the songs of the wandering bands of flagellants, who overspread Europe during two periods of mass hysteria, the first during the middle of the 13th century, and the second during the Black Death in 1349. The 12,000s composers. Johann Erhard. Johann Erhard was a trover from Arras, particularly noted for his favor in the pastoral genre. He has left behind 11 pastorals, 10 grand chants, and 1 servant soir. The pastoral is a typically Old French lyric form concerning the romance of shepherdess. The grand chant, or courtois, or in modern French, chanson courtois or chanson d'amour, was a genre of Old French lyric poetry devised by the trovers. The servant soir, sometimes translated as service song, was a genre of Old Occitan lyric poetry practiced by troubadours. The name comes from servant, from whose perspective the song is allegedly written. Adam de Givenchy. Adam de Givenchy was a trover, probably from Givenchy, and active in and around in Arras. Adam appears in charters of May and July 1230 as a clerk of the Bishop of Arras. He was still serving in the household of the bishop in 1232. In 1243, he was named as a priest and chaplain to the bishop. In 1245, he was named the doyen of Lens. Maestri Gebert Kaikasel or Herbert Chausel. Maestri Gebert Kaikasel was a trover from Arras, where he is named as a canon in a document of the Cathedral Notre Dame in 1250. His title indicates he was probably a master of arts. He was a member of the literary circle active at Arras mid-century. Dame Margot. Dame Margot was a trover from Arras, in Picardy, France. One extant work of hers is Jeu Party, a debate song in which she debates Dame Marois. This song, Je vous prie Dame Marois, survives in 2 manuscripts, which each give separate and unrelated melodies. In other Jeu Party, she is a judge, opposing Jehan Le Couvert de Arras and Jehan Bretel. She is listed as a member of the Puy d'Arras. Dame Marois. Dame Marois was a trover from Arras in Artois, France. She debates Dame Margot in Jeu Party or debate song Je vous prie Dame Marois. Reinmar von Sweeter. Reinmar von Sweeter was a Middle High German poet of Spurgedichtung. The iconography in the Mannes Codex suggests that he may have been blind since he is the only person represented in the manuscript, with closed eyes and other people writing. The caption of what the miniature refers to him as her, Reinmar implying that he was a knight and that he became blind in adulthood. Sordello de Goito. Sordello de Goito was a 13th century Italian troubadour born in the municipality of Goito in the province of Mantua. The real Sordello, so far as we have authentic facts about his life, was the most famous of the Italian troubadours. About 1220, he was in a tavern brawl in Florence, and in 1226, while at the court of Richard of Bonifacio in Verona, he had abducted his master's wife, Cuniza, at the instigation of her brother, Rosalino de Romano. The scandal resulted in his flight to Provence, where he seems to have remained for some time. He entered the service of Charles of Anjou, and probably accompanied him on his Naples expedition. In 1266, he was a prisoner in Naples. The last documentary mention of him is in 1269, and he is supposed to have died in Provence. His appearance in purgatory among the spirits of those who, though redeemed, were prevented from making a final confession and reconciliation by sudden death suggests that he was murdered, although this may be Dante's own conjecture. Vincenti of Celsa. Vincenti of Celsa was a Polish canon, poet, and composer, working in Krakow and writing in Latin. He was a member of the Dominican order.
1150 to 1250. The Notre Dame school of polyphony firmly takes root. Rhythmic notation first appears during this period, also known as the Ars Antiqua. It is during this time when the motet, a short sacred choral song, initially developed. The High Middle Ages or High Medieval period was the period of European history that lasted from around 1000 to 250 AD. The High Middle Ages were preceded by the Early Middle Ages and were followed by the Late Middle Ages, which ended around 1500 AD by historiographical convention. The High Middle Ages produced many different forms of intellectual, spiritual, and artistic works. The age also saw the rise of ethnocentrism, which evolved later into modern civic nationalisms in most of Europe. The ascent of the great Italian city-states and the rise and fall of the Islamic civilization of Al-Andalus. The rediscovery of the works of Aristotle, at first indirectly through medieval Jewish and Islamic philosophy. Maimonides, Avicenna, Muhammad Averroes, Thomas Aquinas, and other thinkers of the period to expand scholasticism, a combination of Judeo-Islamic and Catholic ideologies with the ancient philosophy. For much of this period, Constantinople remained Europe's most populous city, and Byzantine art reached a peak in the 12th century. In architecture, many of the most notable Gothic cathedrals were built or completed around this period.